Hello and welcome to the Extremis Publishing podcast. I'm Tom Christie, and it's a great pleasure to be broadcasting to you today from the very heart of Glasgow, and indeed it doesn't get much more central than this, because we're here at the wonderful offices of Real Property Scotland, and I'm speaking to the founder, co-director and co-owner of Real Property Scotland, Mr. Laurie Duncan. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, it's been great to be here actually, Laurie, because you know we've worked with you in the past on a really interesting book all about property development and property trading. And the reason we're here today is because you've written a sequel to that book and one which draws on many of your past experiences, where you talk about the very varied experiences that you've had in the property world, but also how you go about scaling things up to massive business success. Would you like to tell us a bit more about your brand new book?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, as you say, we wrote the first book, I think, back in 2022, was it? 2022, 2023, something like that. And really back then we were, although we'd been in business for a few years, we were right at the start of our journey. Now we have created a very successful group of companies. We've ridden a lot of crazy rides, crazy waves, peaks and troughs. We have an abundance of knowledge and experience that I felt was necessary, appropriate to get across to the masses, because one of the main reasons I wanted to write this book, apart from of course exposure for us and the brand and all the rest of it, is to try and allow people to see what can be achieved if you go and believe in yourself like we did. So there's a ton of knowledge, experience, strategy, you name it. I spend a lot of time talking about how to do what we've done, which is ultimately build a monster property business in a very short period of time with none of our own money. So that's really what the book is all about in essence.
So your new book is very appropriately called Real Property, Real Profit. And the reason I say appropriately, of course, is because everything has been drawn from your own personal business journey, and you're able to speak very candidly about the challenges that you faced and also the problems that you've overcome. Would you like to say a little bit more about some of those challenges and the way that you met them?
Yeah, I mean, there's no challenge we've not faced along this journey of entrepreneurship, both property related but also business related, and I think that's probably true of any startup trying to get things off the ground. There are so many different things that you just need to think about, whether you want to think about them or not, to try and just continue sailing that ship forward. It's incredible. I'm grateful now to be in a position where, as you mentioned, we're through in Glasgow now. We moved through to Glasgow from Grangemouth just at the start of June 2025. We now have a team of 20 staff, and there's many things now that the team can do for me that I previously used to do, such as graphics design and various different bits of administration and accounts and all these types of things. Obviously back in the day you don't have that luxury. When Alex and I started the company it was just the two of us, and so we've really grown massively, overcome lots of different challenges from staff and finance and legal stuff, you name it. We've been through it all, and there's tons of examples of all that kind of dilemma throughout the book. Yeah.
Because that's something worth mentioning, actually, that Real Property Scotland is one of the country's biggest private landlords. Really, it's so fascinating to look at the various different deals that you discuss, including your Aberdeen 100 particularly, and how enormously ambitious that was, all the way through to houses of multiple occupancy, and getting on the ladder even for the first time. So you really do cover the whole gamut.
Yeah, and it's so funny now to think back, probably about 10 years ago, something like that. If I had picked up this book and I had read all the things that I write and talk about in the book, I wouldn't have believed it would have been possible. I would have been of that mindset. Now, just purely from making moves, the belief and obviously the results. Obviously I've got a very different kind of mindset on that. But as you point out, yeah, we started in buy-to-let, we started in residential buy-to-let, we started just like buying properties at discount, and I think we got to about 40 odd units in our first 18 months of working together. That was Alex and I. Alex and I were raising the money, Connor was bringing the deals, and that's how ultimately we ended up in business together. But whilst we started off in buy-to-let, and currently we've got maybe 350 odd units under ownership across Scotland, we don't have anything in England yet, but I can just say watch this space. We now have various trading businesses within the group as well. Real Property Scotland, which is our main trading entity with all the staff, where we offer consulting services and access to off-market deal supply, property refurbishments and all this type of thing, as well as various other trading businesses as part of the group of companies. So it's funny to think back to the days when I was in a corporate job and I was very narrow-minded, and I was in a very different kind of belief system. So there might be people out there that struggle to grasp like what I talk about, the concept, even the possibility, and I can relate to that because I was like that myself. But now obviously I have a very different view because of where we are.
Well, it's a good news story, but it's also a really optimistic story for anybody who perhaps thinks a little bit outside of the mainstream bubble as to how business can't just succeed but actually thrive away from conventional ideas. And I think you really do make that point, don't you, that it's so important to think outside of the box.
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly such a narrow-minded person back when I think about how differently I used to think, I guess. It's only really through studying lots of different things, listening to lots of audiobooks around mindset, around strategy, around business. That's really what kind of changed my tune on all of that. But creativity has to be my favourite part of being in business. I love trying to just create something from nothing, or when everybody else sees a problem, I want to see the opportunity. How can we make this work? And problem solving, I think we're really good, as a team between the three directors as well as the staff. But I think we are really good problem solvers. I mean, I'll give an example of one of the deals we've done in the book, and it's like an old office, a wee shop on the ground floor and an office up the stairs on Grangemouth Precinct. And it was. Most people, I mean, it was on the market for 6 months. So many people were walking by it. Nobody was thinking about how can we create an opportunity out of that. And we've actually got multiple deals down on Grangemouth Precinct of a similar vein. We converted an Indian restaurant, spent 300 grand on it, and now it's one of our best cash flowing assets. So many people saw these opportunities and just walked by them. We went in and had a look around and got creative, and I've created a massive success around that. So I think whether it's property related, business related, or anything else, creativity and problem solving has always served us pretty well so far.
And I mean, there are enormous changes taking place in Laporte Precinct and Grangemouth now, and I think there's big redevelopments going on. So do you think there's going to be new possibilities for development there?
Yeah, I mean, we've just got planning on our latest unit, which is it's actually going to be a hotel rather than an HMO. It's a 12-bedroom hotel. Again, we've always been passionate about trying to bring back life to the high street. We had all these projects on the high street previously. I think I talked about all them in the previous book actually. And on the Grangemouth Precinct, we've got 3 operational units in this one development project. I would like to see a lot more support from the council. I mean, really as a developer, it's tough to try and make an impact on these high streets, because both planning and building control make it very difficult for you to get deals done and create solutions. They have just knocked down that big old building on Kerse Lane, which I think is the one you're referring to. And I do hope that we see a bit more of that, a bit out with the old and in with the new, because it could be such a thriving little area, both Grangemouth and Falkirk High Street, like many high streets across the UK. I would love to see footfall coming back onto these places and see much more development, but I do think the council need to get their act together.
Yeah, I mean, I think what thriving commercial developments there were there in the 90s, and it would be nice to think, there'd be combined commercial residential solutions to those areas to draw people in and to, really revive interest in them.
Yeah, I mean that was always our goal, and we were ready to invest £5 million actually in Falkirk High Street at one point, but sadly had to pull out of that market because we just didn't get the support, and it was too complicated. No business can create any kind of viability out of that, you know.
Well, you talk a lot about the strategies that are involved in these different property deals, but another really important thing that you bring up, of course, is the importance of mindset, and how your behaviour and how you think has a huge effect on how you do business and how you interact with other people professionally. And in particular, you talk about the need to get up early, make the most of those early hours to get things done, get in the right mindset. And it's quite interesting that you're getting up at 3 a.m. because that's usually when I go to sleep. So it just goes to show, that everybody's different. So what big mindset takeaways would you like to highlight to people?
Again, this is such a massive shift in me as a human being. Like the way I used to think now is the way I used to think, is so different to how I think now. I do all these kind of what you may or some of the listeners may consider hippie stuff, like visualization, affirmation, meditation, deep breathing. I do hot and cold therapy between my sauna and the ice bath. I like to do the thing where you look in the mirror and stare into your eyeballs and affirm to yourself that you can do anything. All these types of things that maybe some folk are having a chuckle at now as they listen to this podcast. But I just had a meeting actually with a client before we came in to do this podcast, and it was a client that's looking to create massive growth in a short period of time, like most of our clients want to do. And we were really pushing his comfort zone and doing like a kind of bigger portfolio deal, including a hotel, and there's various different types of complication around that. And he was just kind of saying that he was up till midnight trying to figure all the numbers out, and then he woke up at 3:30 shitting himself. Oh no, what am I missing? What's going on? And I was talking to him about all this type of stuff, about belief and all these mindset techniques and how they massively help. And I think he was kind of struggling maybe before he came into that meeting. Glad to say that after the meeting he confirmed it kind of put his mind at ease, and he was away to go for an ice bath to try and de-stress a little bit, but all these different tools and techniques, I honestly don't believe that, certainly I couldn't do what we do now. I wouldn't be in a place to be able to deal with all the pressure, I don't think, if I never kind of decompressed through the likes of meditation and all that. So all these different things that I do now, I would never have done them back in the day, but definitely I find them massively beneficial, and I would counsel anybody that's listening to just try it, just give it a chance, because I would have been the guy to take the piss out of all this type of stuff before, even although I never tried it, and I tend to find that the people that haven't tried it like I was before are the ones that do maybe take the piss out of it, and they could maybe benefit from it, So there you go. I challenge the listeners, go and stand on a Shakti mat for 5 minutes barefoot, then have a nice bath.
So, we often see a lot of relentless negativity on TV about the economy, about business, about, what future projections look like for Britain and elsewhere. But your book is quite different from that, because it is a very optimistic book. It is a book that says if you apply yourself, if you're willing to put in the hard work, if you're willing to educate yourself, that there are rewards available. What advice would you give to people who are maybe thinking about entering the property market for the first time, about how they can overcome that mainstream negativity and forge their own path?
Yeah, I mean, negativity, it's one of the many things that we can control through the study of the mind, dealing with negatives. There's different techniques that I use, for example, to deal with that, because as you say, it's just everywhere. I don't watch the TV, I don't watch the news, certainly. I mean, I just cannot deal with all the negativity that seems to be this, anytime you turn on the news, that's all you hear. So I stopped doing that. That was another big shift for me. Like, I used to watch the news every morning, every night. That was what I did. And just the first time I heard somebody talk about this negativity of the news, I didn't even realise. But so I just kind of cut that, stopped watching it, and that's made a massive difference to me in my life as well. I've surrounded myself with like-minded individuals, other people that want to really go after success, like Alex and Connor. We all study these different techniques, these different mindset principles, and all that. I don't see some of my mates as much as I used to, guys that I grew up with, who may also be very kind of negative, very kind of just down. And, you know, we tend to find that by hanging out with each other as business owners, driven, you know, all this kind of stuff, that it really serves us well. I think I'm quite an optimistic person generally, you know. And I mean, yeah, there's tons of different advice I could give. That the first thing is, you've just got to believe. You've got to believe that you can do it. Like, you know, if you don't believe you're going to do it, you're never going to even take the first step. I mean, I give the example in the book with the first ever deal I done up in Kirriemuir, and that was actually the point in time that I proved to myself that it worked. But before I could even get the proof, I obviously had to make the first move. That was the one I bought at 40 grand. It was worth 90 grand. I refinanced it, got 25 grand back of cash, you know, kept the property, rented it out, etc. You know, the full information's in the book about that story. But I mean, the advice has just got to be, you've got to believe, and you've got to make a move. You've got to take a baby step. Those baby steps will always equal giant steps if you just keep taking the baby steps. But if you never break out your comfort zone, well, you're never going to know, are you? You're never going to be able to obtain the proof because you never made the move in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, that's such an interesting point, actually, because you do mention in the book just how central the COVID-19 pandemic was to the development of your business, how everything changed. We often heard this phrase, the new normal, because everything had been turned on its head. And yet you were able to get ahead of the game by finding these opportunities and making the most of them when there was a great deal of disarray, you know, when people were still trying to work out what was going on. And who could have imagined the journey that the country has taken these last few years? So my question to you would be, where do you think the future is headed for property development in Scotland specifically, but perhaps in the UK more generally?
Well, yeah, even when you mentioned COVID there, if I think about that point in time, I mean, we were kind of quote unquote lucky because, you know, we were forced to kind of be at home because there was travel bans and all this kind of thing, which allowed us to focus on our property business and grow it, because we had international jobs and we were forced to be at home. I mean, how we actually created our growth, thinking back now, how we created all that during that period of time, I don't know. It was just wild. But we did at the end of the day. You know, we believed in ourselves, we continually solved problems, we got creative, we got deals done when the rest of the world was just kind of sleeping. So yeah, I guess that worked out well for us. Like in terms of the future of the property space, I mean, I see so much opportunity. There's been a massive rental boom recently. I don't know if you know, the guys listening will be aware, but after COVID, actually, there was these restrictions on rental increases, and there was also the you know, legalities around financing evicting tenants and all this type of stuff. Sorry, the base rate went up, which is a finance issue. Then there was legalities about actually kicking tenants out, even if they didn't pay you rent. It was bonkers. But now there's been a big correction. You know, the rates are down. They're probably about 5% APR for limited company lending on term loan products for buy-to-let in Scotland. The rents are up massively. You know, you can create very significant returns from residential property investment, you know, by combining the acquisition strategies of buying properties at discounts with the refinance strategies and the larger rental returns now. I only see opportunity. Now, that's actually one of my flaws as well, because I'm always the optimistic guy, I'm always the kind of positive guy. Every time, you know, like there's an obvious negative, I even struggle to see it. But I do believe very strongly in the future of residential property in Scotland, definitely, and England. Like I say, we've no made our moves there yet, but for anyone thinking of getting into it, I mean, I can only tell you from my own experience, but it can be absolutely life-changing to start making moves and continue growing that property portfolio, or doing different trades, or whatever else it is as you might be. But definitely, I honestly can say this from the bottom of my heart, I swear on my mother's life, there has never been a better time to get into property than now.
Well, one final question, because it would be remiss of me not to ask you. If just by sheer happenstance, you were able to have access to a time-travelling DeLorean, and you're able to go back to 2017 and speak to young corporate Laurie. What would your advice be, given all of these experiences you've had in these last few years?
Oh man, I can imagine the conversation. I can imagine the dismissive nature of corporate Laurie in 2017. You know, telling him, telling today's Laurie to get out of his office, because I don't even think I would have listened back in 2017. I would try to just, you know, the initial step always has to be the baby step. You know, my baby step was buying that book on an iPhone, the 0 to 135 properties in 3.5 years by the guy Steve McKnight that I talk about. That was always my turning point, and I was just too curious. But you know, I'd never believed it would be possible until then. I would just try and convince my younger self to just give it a chance. Even the mindset stuff, the business stuff, the property stuff, all the strategy, like, just give it a chance. Go and research it, listen to it, give it a chance, and you know, if you like what you hear, dig a little deeper. And hopefully, you know, that would have maybe pushed them on a little bit quicker.
Well, Laurie, thanks so much for having taken the time to speak with us today. It's been great to catch up with you and to hear your thoughts about such a fascinating and fast-moving topic. For anyone at home who's interested in learning, you know, real strategies and receiving real wisdom from a real expert in the field, I would highly recommend this book to anyone, even if your interest is more in business strategy than in property. There is so much here that will fascinate you, and such a really interesting personal life story taking place within this professional framework. So thanks again, it's been great to talk to you.
Thank you, cheers.
Real Property, Real Profit is available to buy from all good online booksellers and retailers worldwide. Thanks very much for joining us today. I hope that you'll tune in again soon.